Hey y'all, I'm Elisa, the Scrappy Wife behind ScrappyWife.com, and today I have a Bible journal process video for you. I am working through the devotional What Jesus Commands from By the Will for God, and I will be working in day 3, which is Let Your Light Shine and Go the Second Mile. Today I'll be journaling in Matthew 5. I have a lot of supplies pulled out. I will definitely list them down below if you're interested in checking them out. Otherwise, let's go. All right, I'm going to start out with some Tattered Rose Distress Oxide, and all I'm doing is really doing a tone-on-tone background for this page, starting out with some blending, and then you'll see me working with a stencil and a stamp. I thought this day of the devotional was really interesting because it connected these two parts of Matthew 5 that I've studied plenty of times, but I hadn't really drawn a connection between the two, and that would be Matthew 5:14, where it's saying, "You are the light of the world." And then later on in Matthew, where it says 5:38, where it's talking about eye for an eye and tooth for a tooth and turning the other cheek. And I thought that that was a really interesting connection because I feel like so often our culture tells us that we can be a part of the cancel culture, that once someone disagrees with us, once someone hurts us, that we can just cut them out of our lives completely, that we can ignore them, that our light and our purpose should be for those that appreciate it. And I think that that is not what Jesus is telling us to do. He's telling us to show up for everybody, to be the light to the world, not just light to people that are kind to us or light to people that respect our opinions. So it can be really hard to be a light when it feels like someone is trying to blow you out. You know what I mean? Like when they are trying to diminish you and trying to diminish your light, and it can feel like it would be easier to just shut them out, to just focus where it's a little bit easier. And I think something we read over and over in the gospel is that it's not always meant to be easy, and sometimes the hardest route is what brings God the most glory. Okay, I have been in love with this typewriter stamp since I saw it on the preview from the By the Will for God release for What Jesus Commands, and I knew I wanted to have it be an interactive element. So I'm actually stamping it on the back of one of the prayer journal cards, which may seem odd, but I really liked the coloring of the card, so that's why I went with that. I'm fussy cutting it out, and then I had already pre-stamped out several of these tags. Now, if you didn't catch it, I did a setup video talking about how I like to get set for a devotional, how I do a ton of fussy cutting and stamping and all kinds of stuff in advance so that when I sit down to journal, I already have a lot of the elements ready to go. And that would be the case with this particular tag. And what I'm doing is just cutting out a little part of this typewriter piece, and once it's cut out, it creates a little place where this tag can live. And I decided to go ahead and make a full pocket out of it because I was going to be layering pieces behind the typewriter, and I didn't know how that would work. It just, to me, made more sense. I'd be able to work with it. So all I'm doing is adding some adhesive around the edge, but not over where the opening is. And then I'll put it down on another prayer journal card and then trim it out, and you can see my little tag fits right in, so it can like come up out of the typewriter as if it were being typed itself, which I think is fun. I know you guys know that I love interactive elements. I think it invites people to investigate your Bible more, which for me, my children look through my journaling Bibles a lot, and so I want it to intrigue them. I want them to be looking and reading all the little different bits and pieces, so I like those interactive elements a good deal. Okay, on that tag, I will be using that same stamp set and adding the phrase "follow him" and then the phrase "let your light shine." And I love that they're formatted to work with this tag. Later on, I'll be listing the verses that I'm referencing just so that I will have that connection point later on when I'm looking at this page and kind of reflecting on it. Okay, so all my main pieces are done, but I decided what I really needed was a little bit of distressing on the edges of each of these pieces just because I want them to stand out a little bit more, and because it was near the same tone, it was looking a little bit too much tone on tone. So I'm just adding a little bit of weathered wood behind the typewriter. Now you can see it kind of jumps out a little bit more. And now I will be doing all of the layering. I was like totally in the mood for some paper layering, and because of my prep work, I had a bunch of different pieces ready to go. So I didn't even have to do a lot of cutting, which was awesome. So I've been trying to include these letter boards on every day. That's where I'm kind of notating the day that I'm on, which I think is a fun way to connect all of the different entries for this devotional. So I've been having fun finding ways to include those. I mean, it's not a small element to include, so it's a little bit of a challenge. And then I love the microphone, just the idea that your light, it can be shared in a variety of ways, but one of the ways to share it is through your voice, through your presence, through how you speak to others, through how you respond to others, which is just something I was reflecting on. I just, again, loved the connection between how you react to how someone treats you and whether or not you are being God's light in this world. So I think that was something to think about and to kind of self-reflect on. You can see that I'm adding adhesive to the backs of all of these. I am using my adhesive tape glider, which is that pink tape gun. I just feel like it's a really strong adhesive. I recently did a flip through of a previous journaling Bible for my YouTube members, and I did notice that some of the things that I had put down with a Tombow permanent adhesive were not staying any longer, which is a little disappointing. In the end, I know some of these elements are not going to stand the test of time, but I do want it to stand up a little bit better. So I am going to try to be a little more self-conscious about using this tape glider, because I just feel like it's a stronger adhesive that's going to last and stand the test of time just a little bit better. But there will still be times that I use that Tombow because it's just simply super easy. The By the Well for God paper pieces tend to have this white border around them. Sometimes I use it, sometimes I don't. In this case, I decided to go ahead and trim it off. It was just looking a little bit too stark white for me. And then I still come back with the weathered wood to add a little bit of aging, a little bit of distress around the edges, which is a little tricky in some of those more delicate areas. So you do have to just be a little bit careful. So adding it where I can around the edges, and that just brings it into the rest of the page, making it all look just a little bit more distressed. So I will add that in as well, and then look to see what else I can layer. So if you noticed with that letterboard, I did make sure to not adhere all the way down. I was pulling up the edges. I only have adhesive on the part that is in the margin. The other part can be lifted up. I don't usually mind covering up text from time to time. Like I've said several times before, this is not the Bible that I study from. This is the Bible that I journal in. In this case, one of the main verses that I was focusing on, though, is covered up partially by that letterboard. So I wanted to make it so that you could bend it up so that you could still read underneath it. So that's kind of how I solved that problem. I don't worry that over time it's going to get bent and look a little worn. To me, a worn Bible is a loved Bible that has been used, and so I don't mind those marks and those creases and things like that. It doesn't affect me very much. All right, I cut out a butterfly from the digital set. I believe there's a paper piece that is this butterfly also, but I think I used it on another entry. And now this is some golden ribbon that I had that I sewed into a little bit of a ruffle that I'm going to add here at the bottom just for some texture and a little bit of shine at the bottom, which I think is nice since the title of this page is going to be Shine Bright. Now that this cluster at the page is done, I decided to go ahead and mark the verses that I was focusing on. And there's a couple of options. I could have done the journaling on this tag right below where I stamped Let Your Light Shine, but I decided I had a little bit more to say, and I did want to add a proper title to this page. And I could have used Follow Him as the title as well. So I'm trying to figure out what I want to do. And while I do that, I'm going to address the letterboard. So I don't know if you knew, but on the sticker sheets, By the Will for God now adds cut lines around the kind of logo for By the Will for God and the title, so you can use those as bonus stickers. And so I chose the What Jesus Commands sticker to put at the top, and then I'm using the Tile Alpha stickers to write out day 3, so I know what it refers to. And I'm pulling out some alpha stamps from this past time. I think these are Matthew's Alpha. I'm not totally sure. I may have to list it below. Check below to see which alpha this was, but I'm using it to stamp out the title Shine Bright. And I've gotten into a little bit of a rut where I've only been stamping in black ink recently, so I'm trying to push myself out of it. So I'm actually stamping in peacock feathers, one of my other favorite inks, and the Distress Oxide ink I love as well because it gives a nice worn look, which fits the vintage feel of what I'm going for. And now to add even more color here at the top, I have the coral color from Archer and Olive. This is one of their acrylic markers that I have been loving recently, and I'm using it to add just a little bit of a shadow to the title. And that brings that coral color that's in the frame up to the top as well, which I think is a nice little just bit of color peeking out. Next, I'm actually going to grab a stamp block that I had on hand to add my journaling lines. I am definitely team journaling lines, and you'll see why, because I can't even do my journaling lines totally straight. So there's zero chance that I would just freehand journal straight. So I like the lines there to kind of keep me on track. I don't usually plan out what I'm going to journal in advance. It's just in my head. It's a prayer. It's something that I wanted to focus on. So I just estimate the number of lines that I'm going to need. Down below, I'm writing out the verses that I was referencing just so that I can make sure to see that connection point. And then I'm writing up top, the world tells us to turn our backs on those who hurt us, to withhold our light and save it for those who appreciate it. But Jesus tells us to shine in the darkest places, the places where others are trying to extinguish God's love. Shine there. And once I'm done with that, I will work on the tab at the top. I'm adding a date to fill in a little section right there. And then for the top, I love the fabric tab, so I'm adding that on, but generally you need to adhere those in some way with washi tape or something. And I actually grab one of the labels that coordinates with the kit, and those are just fantastic. You can use them in a number of ways. I'm trimming mine down and using it kind of as washi tape to make sure that that fabric tab stays in place. It also gives me another little place for journaling. And I'm going to add what I would guess is a little subtitle, I guess. Using the alpha stickers, I'm going to add the phrase, when it's hard. So shine bright when it's hard. I feel like there's lots of times where it's easy to shine bright, easy to show God's love, easier at least. And then there's times where it's really hard. And so I think we're definitely called to shine bright when it's hard. And then at the bottom, I add the phrase, stay strong and soft, meaning stay strong in God's love, stay strong in your faith, but stay soft with your heart, stay soft with others. It's so easy to harden your heart to those that have hurt you and not show them love, to turn away and cancel them and write them off. And so I think there's an interesting combination between stay strong, but also stay soft. And that is it for this page. If you like this video, please give it a thumbs up and consider hitting that subscribe button as well as the bell notification button. I have listed all of the supplies I use down below so you can check those out. Heads up, some of those are affiliate links. It does not cost you anymore, but it does go a long way to supporting this channel. Speaking of supporting this channel, a special shout out to my YouTube members. Thank you so much for all of your love and support. If you are interested in finding out more about YouTube membership and what those amazing ladies receive as perks, then make sure to click the join button. I hope that you have a fabulous day, and as always, keep it creative.